The golden kernels would act as a reminder of the halcyon days of summer past and the promise of those yet to come. But no matter how busy the season, folks in this small town always managed to fit in the annual county fair. Although blue ribbons may have cost only 50 cents each to make, to the men and women in Dorsetville they were worth more than a king's ransom. In between their chores, men groomed their livestock entries until their coats shone like spun glass, tuned their tractors until they purred, and practiced their hog-hollering until their wives thought they'd go insane. Meanwhile, the women crafted items until their fingers felt as though they might fall off their hands, and cooked until their kitchens were as hot as the fires of hell. The Friday of Labor Day weekend would be the official kick-off for the fair, held at the fairgrounds about a mile and a half outside town. Although it was still called a county fair, only a few of the 40 or so towns that made up Lichfield County participated. Since the early 80s, much of the surrounding farmland had been sold and developed. Where acres of verdant, rich fields had once spanned the distance as far as the eye could see, the hills now sported enormous homes the locals called McMansions. The landscape, however, wasn't the only thing that had changed with the influx of people. Taxes had soared as thousands of children poured into the school systems. It seemed that every school was undergoing some kind of renovation program. More teachers were hired. More school buses were bought. Dirt roads quickly gave way to asphalt, which was easier to plow in the winter. Of course, the increase in motor traffic meant an increase in public services, all of which required higher taxes, which began to make it increasingly difficult for farmers to hold on to their large tracts of land. Fortunately, the state of Connecticut intervened. Realizing that the beauty of the state was in its scenic vistas, which were quickly becoming endangered, it fashioned a buyback program. Farmers would sell their land to the state, then rent it back for $1 a year, thus eliminating all taxes. When the family no longer wanted to farm the land or died off, the farm would be turned into open space, ensuring that Connecticut would maintain its beautiful landscapes for future generations. Several large farms had been saved with this plan, including farms in Goshen, Bethlehem, Morris, Lichfield, Roxbury, Washington, and Dorsetville. And the farmers still looked forward each year to the chance to participate in livestock competitions at the county fair. The fair was a tradition that had started during the Depression, in the hope it might keep folks' minds off their troubles. Back then it had been mostly an agricultural fair, where blue ribbons were handed out to the best in breed in poultry, rabbits, swine, horses, and cattle. Over the years it had grown and now included hollering contests, wood-chopping and sawing contests, tractor pulls, a miniature rodeo run by the 4-H Club, and a plethora of women's events that covered everything from fine needlepoint, quilts, hooked rugs, flower arranging, and preserves and jams, to the most coveted blue ribbon of all, the apple pie contest. It was this last entry that made Father James Flaherty feel like a black cloud was hanging over him like a guillotine. Heaven help him, he had finally agreed to be a judge for this year's contest. He would have done anything short of selling his soul to the devil to have sidestepped the honor, but had finally run out of excuses. He passed the Congregational parsonage on his way downtown, and remembered the year that Reverend Curtis was named a judge. The poor man hadn't had a minute's rest from the moment his name appeared in the Dorsetville Gazette. For the next few weeks, Father James had watched women stream into the parsonage bearing pie samples for his opinion. When the Reverend had finally insisted they stop,